For all things great iron and hard top, it's Kevlu and Steve since the Sandbox.
Since the Sandbox fans, we are back from beautiful Naples, Florida, and I brought a special guest. This is a very familiar face to the show, also a very familiar face to me. No coincidence that we're on vacation together.
Yes, sir.
But the one, the only,
Oh, please.
Uncle Tony.
Oh, God.
How it do?
It goes, man. It goes. In the words of Andrew Liskin, leaning to the left. So.
Okay, shout out to Liskin.
Yes, sir.
And guys, today we're going to be talking about the best and worst moves of the offseason.
Indeed.
Keep in mind, guys, Uncle Tony's a Ravens fan, all right? So just keep that in mind. But he does try and remove the bias as much as he can.
I promise you, zero bias. Zero bias. I may say a good thing about the Steelers. Who knows? So.
But Anthony, I'm going to talk about, some of the best moves in the offseason first, because I feel like you always want the good news first instead of the bad news,
It sweetens the bad news.
One of the best moves I honestly think this offseason has to be Von Miller. Von Miller going to the Buffalo Bills. I mean, it was surprising to me, honestly, like the fact that he came from the Rams and now is going to Buffalo, but this wasn't like he was with the Rams for multiple years, you know what I mean? Yep. So I think that's more of like the reasoning behind it. And Denver was a very like cold place also. Yeah. So he's probably, not afraid of the cold. And I mean, that deal, that's almost a quarterback deal. 6 years, $120 million. Some may argue that Von Miller's best football is behind him, but when you look at what Buffalo has as like a team, a roster, a franchise, that's what they were missing. They were just missing that pass rush, and as a Ravens fan, you've obviously experienced that in many different ways throughout the years. What do you think about Von Miller going there?
Whoever says Von Miller's best football is behind him, I think that's not true. I think that he's still an elite player. I think that he's at a stage in his career now where it wouldn't make sense for him to go anywhere that's not a contender for the Super Bowl.
That's right.
So I think that him going there puts Buffalo on the map even more than they already were, because they're already on the rise. I think that was a beautiful signing, and I think it's going to work out. I think we'll see the Bills in the conference championship next year.
Wow. Yeah. Damn, Uncle Tony coming with the fire.
I told you, no bias today. This is real.
Kev's going to be really excited when he hears that. Nah, he's going to love all that. All the love for Buffalo. Anthony, I want to talk about another great move that happened this offseason. I just started with the defensive side of the ball. Now I'm going to go to one of the craziest moves that happened the entire offseason, and Russell Wilson going to the AFC, going to the Denver Broncos. And the reason why I say that is because, we just finished talking about the Bills, and, I really want to see how these AFC teams are matching up against each other. Is Buffalo, one of your favorites in the AFC? Do you think one of the teams in the AFC West is going to be, one of the favorites? It's very hard because they're all a bunch of talented teams, but Russell Wilson going to Denver, we talked about the trade on the podcast, and I personally think like Denver got a robbery. Getting a Hall of Fame quarterback and not sacrificing too much future capital. That's just my thought process behind it. You can obviously think Seattle's getting a good side of the deal as well with the draft compensation and the players that they got, but realistically, without a quarterback, they're not going to find that success. And to be honest, I don't think whoever they have on their roster, Drew Lock, probably the favorite to be the starter unless they draft somebody next week. I just don't think like he's going to be able to provide that, honestly. So I think the Russell Wilson move is going to absolutely change football. And I think that this is already a 10 win plus team that's acknowledging all the teams in their division.
I agree. Honestly, that team, talking about Denver here, has been a quarterback away from like a playoff run since Peyton Manning retired. They've tried in experiments, with people like Teddy Bridgewater, who's a great quarterback. Drafting Drew Lock and then trying to surround him with people like Judy, Sutton, and at the time Fant before he was part of the deal.
That's right.
I think that AFC West is like, it's just scary. Like, it's hard. It's crazy, but like, given the new playoff seeding, like, who knows? What if we see all 4 AFC West teams in the playoffs? That would be literally insane.
The NFL is definitely the league to provide all the first. We see the worst of first happen every year. Look at what the Bengals just did.
Cincinnati Bengals.
And I hate to say that. I hate to say that.
You said it. Don't taking it back.
But you removed your bias.
Yeah. Doesn't hurt. I know what you're talking about. Sorry.
That's definitely the division that could do it. I feel like the NFC West has been prepared to do that for a couple of years, but we've seen some slip-ups. All right, so those were a couple of the best moves of the offseason. Now, Anthony, I can get into some of the worst moves in the offseason too, but I know you have a couple of things that you'd like to share with us, so
yeah.
Go ahead, Uncle Tony.
So we talked about how I removed the bias for today. I want to talk about my first worst move.
Let's hear it.
If I'm the Baltimore Ravens, if I'm Eric DeCosta, if I have a safety on the market like Tyrann Mathieu that I could sign, why am I paying
Marcus Williams
$70 million?
That's tough.
That's tough, right? Like, I mean, unless Eric DeCosta is seeing some Ed Reed type play out of him, which I want to see the tape then.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad player. Like, really hope it works out, obviously, but like $70 million for Marcus Williams when you got a safety like Tyrann Mathieu in the market is really, it's kind of frustrating to watch as a Ravens fan.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they offered him that type of a deal and he probably asked for a little bit more. But where it gets, confusing is Tyrann Mathieu said that he would have took the deal that Justin Reed just got, and that was for like $10 million a year if the Chiefs had offered it to him.
Don't say that.
Sorry,
no bias.
So I'm not really sure where that's all happened. The Honey Badger is still a free agent at this point, so it's going to be interesting to see where he lines up. Marcus Williams, I think, will be solid. I know, you guys lost Deshaun Elliott, and he played solid ball for you for a little bit, but he just went to the Lions. But yeah, I get what you're saying. The price tag's a little hefty. I'm not going to disagree with that statement, but it's definitely going to be improved safety play there. But definitely. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't have been surprised if the Ravens chose to choose the draft to really address safety, and that's why it's confusing. They dished out that much money.
Yeah, so I definitely get that. That's something that they would do. They live in the draft. Like come draft day, there's been days where Steve and I have watched the draft, and I've had to wait until the next day for the Ravens to pick because they had 1 or 2 picks in the first round, and then they get to the pick and it gets traded. Yeah. It's an Ozzie Newsome thing to do. He's still the godfather over there, watching over his Michael Corleone, that is Eric DeCosta. So, hopefully they they know what they're doing. I have faith in Eric. So
that's right. And guys, since Anthony just brought up the draft, we have a bunch of draft coverage coming to you guys, so make sure to go and check that out. My second mock draft will be coming to you next week, so stay tuned. Go and check out the rest of the content for all that. I'm going to get into one of my worst moves of the offseason, and I just think that this one was a little bit trigger happy. For the Denver Broncos, and we just talked about the great move that they made with Russell Wilson, but the move that they had with Randy Gregory, paying him 5 years, $70 million. I just don't really see that production in Dallas for him to earn that type of a deal. And I know that there's not too much of a guarantee in that contract, but I still feel like that's a lot to dish out, as far as like a hold goes on the cap hit and things like that. And not only that, I just feel like that there's probably better players out there that are more deserving for that type of a deal, if you want my honest opinion. I mean, why not offer I know Chandler Jones got a little bit more money, but why not offer that to him and see what happens? He ended up going to the rival with the Raiders. Pay that extra couple million when you know that you have a guy that's guaranteed to produce in ways that he has for multiple seasons, when Randy Gregory's probably had 2 seasons with 10 games that he's played healthy.
Did Von Miller even get that money?
Von Miller got $20 million a year, so yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say, if you're not giving Von Miller that money and Randy Gregory's making that money, then
I know.
Come on, man.
But Anthony, do you want to share another move with us?
So yeah, I want to go back to best for a second. Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to put this here. So they get Teddy Bridgewater, the Miami Dolphins, right? They go. I'm talking about as a team whole now, not just one move.
Okay.
Right. And then they go and they trade for Tyreek Hill. That's a blockbuster trade. I honestly, if you asked me at the beginning of the offseason or like any season, I think Tyreek Hill's a Chief for life.
I would have thought that too.
That's
honestly
aggressive. Like the Dolphins are just sick and tired of like the narrative behind them, like not being a good team. They get the Bills now who are building, obviously. The Patriots are always a threat because of Belichick. And the Dolphins are saying, you know what, we're sick of this. We're going to go and we're going to get Tyreek Hill, and hopefully we can have that 2, because it worked with Fitzpatrick, that 2 quarterback system they were working.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't think Miami's, shooting for that as their goal, but I definitely think that Teddy Bridgewater will come in, and if there is a lack of faith in Tua, knowing that even though Teddy Bridgewater is a conservative quarterback, that he could still make a lot more of, let's say, deep throws and things of that nature that can complement the game of Tyreek Hill. But With Miami, we can go in depth a little bit more with this. The head coach, Mike McDaniel, coming over from the 49ers. Let's keep in mind the format that he used Deebo Samuel last year. And now that you have a receiver like Jalen Waddle and a receiver like Tyreek Hill, I mean, one can be doing the deep, but one could be doing the Deebo-ish type of stuff, and that can definitely present, a lot of trouble. And they also, they invest in the running back position. They got Raheem Mostert, and they also signed another running back as well.
Edmonds, right?
Chase Edmonds, that's right, 2-year, $12 million deal, which wasn't one of my favorite signings because I feel like that's a lot of money, and they probably could have drafted a running back that's a little bit better than Chase Edmonds. Personally, that's just a personal opinion, but it definitely gives them depth at the position, honestly. And yeah, I think this puts a lot of pressure on Tua because there was, the talk with Brian Flores and Deshaun Watson and all things of that nature, but that's kind of why Brian Flores isn't here right now. And the fact that, they're bringing in Teddy Bridgewater and possibly could look to be in next year's quarterback draft class. Yeah. There might not be a player in the entire NFL this season that has more pressure than Tua, honestly. Yeah. So things are definitely going to be interesting for Miami. Let's see if they can compete in that loaded AFC. I'm going to come back. One of my favorite moves of the offseason. Okay. And it's a sleeper. It's in your division. Yeah. And it's Myles Jack to the Steelers. And I don't think people realize how great and versatile, dynamic of a defender that Myles Jack was because he played with Jacksonville. Yeah. And one great player isn't going to change an entire team or an entire defense. Yeah. And that was, what I feel like a lot of the deal is. And I feel like if a pass rusher like Josh Allen, who's on the Jacksonville Jaguars now, was on a different team, he'd probably, I don't want to say double his sack rate, but that's the only guy they got to worry about. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it definitely would improve. If he was on the Ravens, that'd be a guy that gets 15-plus sacks.
That's a dream. Oh,
but Myles Jack, I think it's a great move. We know what the Steelers like to do, how they shape their team and build their roster. And Minka Fitzpatrick is there. T.J. Watt, arguably the best defender in the NFL, is there. I mean, things are looking scary for the Steelers. It all comes down to whether they draft a quarterback or have that faith in Trubisky to try and get them some wins. But I don't have the faith that Trubisky can get them to 10 games. I know last year that they were pretty close with a mediocre Big Ben, but I think 10-plus wins is what it's going to take in the AFC.
Yeah, so that Myles Jack move scares me. So Bias coming back into this real quick. I first knew Myles Jack was legit after that play against the Patriots in the conference championship where they said that he was down. Remember, he picked up that fumble and he should have scored? Yeah. I was like, wow. Wow. Like, that a human just did that. Yeah. So the fact that he's on the opposite side of T.J. Watt now on a contender, like,
absolutely crazy.
That's like, it's scary to see. So that's a great move for Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Another move that I'm not too fond of. This is more of like a we'll see rather than a best or worst. Allen Robinson going over to the Rams because I really feel like his best football is behind him. They have Cooper Kupp, and personally, I think Odell would have been a little bit cheaper, and I think he would have gave better production than Allen Robinson. But that was just something quickly I wanted to touch upon, and the reason why I just wanted to quickly do that is because I want to talk about the move of Khalil Mack making a big change in that division. And it's going to be crazy for the Chargers, right? It's going to be crazy for the Chargers, the fact that Denver was investing on the opposite side of the ball in the offense. They went and got J.C. Jackson, and they were like, okay, we're not done on the defensive side of the ball. Let's go and get Khalil Mack, who's not only a great pass rusher, but a great run stuffer, and that's lining up next to Joey Bosa in the great secondary they have. That's what I'm mentioning, Derwin James. So I definitely think that Khalil Mack is going to be one of the best moves of the offseason, and I have a couple more that I want to touch upon, but I know Anthony has another one.
I'm going to Kansas City for a second because you can't replace a player like Tyreek Hill, but I think that it's a great move to go and get Juju Smith-Schuster.
Okay.
That's a great move. I think, again, you're not going to replace the production of Tyreek Hill in his exact role in that offense, but going to get another receiver to have, run with Kelsey and run with McCole Hardman, I think that that's a great move for Kansas City, Juju Smith.
I'll double down that was a solid move for them, but I'll say a bad move that they had was going to get MVS.
Yeah, I mean,
Marquez Valdez-Scantling. And look, like, I get it. I think it's, mentally it definitely, fits the mold, right? You want to replace your speedster with another speedster, but there was a lack of production when he was playing with Aaron Rodgers, and this is the person that was back-to-back MVPs. Mm-hmm. And they needed that production.
Yep.
Devontae always was, wasn't always in the lineup. He was hurt, and we're talking about one of the better receivers in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So what they paid him, I necessarily wouldn't have gave, but I think it's going to be interesting to see the way that they use him. I definitely think that the Chiefs are still going to look to address the wide receiver position in the draft, so you guys should pay attention to my mock draft 1 to see where I drafted somebody. Anthony, another move that I think wasn't too great this offseason was the Vikings re-signing Kirk Cousins, just giving him 1 year, $35 million, fully guaranteed. Mm-hmm. It's just like, how many one-year stints is this guy going to get until you realize that he's really not the guy?
Yeah.
Or not the guy that you think is going to win you a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I say that is Kirk Cousins is not the worst quarterback in the league.
No.
But he's not going to make that extracurricular play, that amazing talent or like the leg ability, the broken tackle, the deep ball. Yeah. It's just not going to happen. Like the highlight of Kirk Cousins' career, if you look back and think of it, is really, you like that.
Yeah.
And that was crazy. Funny. It was great. And like his story's really cool. The fact that he was drafted the same year as RG3 and he ended up having the career he did, and RG3's career kind of shot down. That was definitely, really interesting. But 2 more moves I want to address quickly, and we'll wrap up the episode. I mean, Deshaun Watson was definitely going to leave Houston, and I think the Browns is a good scenario. I think they definitely need to invest a little bit more on the offensive side of the ball, but they have the defense, so I think that's a good move. But staying in that division, this, honestly, I think is one of the best moves of the offseason. That's La'el Collins going to the Bengals, and I'm sorry, in that division, but we know how bad that Bengals offensive line was last year, and they definitely needed some help, protecting Joey Burrow, and he took them all the way to the Super Bowl with a poor offensive line. So just think what they're going to be able to do with a great one. I hate to put that vision in your head as a Ravens fan.
No bias, right?
That's right. But La'el Collins is a solid tackle. Obviously played at LSU, so that connection there with Joe Burrow, I'm sure is going to click right away. But I think that this is going to help change the AFC. And if I could only watch AFC games every Sunday next year, I wouldn't be mad at it, because I know how bad the Giants are going to be, right? But guys, let's give a quick round of applause for Uncle Tony. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. I mean, I wasn't going for a dap, but if I was, we can bring it in. Yeah, there we go. That's more like it. Uncle Tony, always a pleasure to have you on. Guys, go and listen to the rest of the content. Go and show some love on YouTube. Since the Sandbox, 5 stars. You know the deal.
You know what's going on, man.
Peace out.
5 stars.
For all things great iron and hard top, it's Kevlu and C since the Sandbox.